I've already used this brand new ASUS Zenbook S14 OLED to test the new Lunar Lake integrated Intel Arc graphics in 40 games and also just to compare it against AMD's 780M and 890M. But today I just wanted to quickly review the laptop itself. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about it is the amazing material that ASUS invented for their new Zenbook series. They call it Ceraluminium, which is supposed to be a mix of aluminum and ceramic, and they use it for the upper side of the display lid. And this really looks and feels so different than any other laptop material I have seen. Their pretty cheesy claim design you can feel, well, to be honest, it's kinda true. Somehow, this one, while being called Zumaya Gray, and they have it in white as well, actually looks like it's made out of stone or paper or some polished black slate or something. But then on the other hand, it's just so light and thin, while at the same time it's actually quite sturdy and the build quality really is just top notch. And opening it with one hand just works good thanks to the little notch at the front below the display lid, though sometimes, at least on slippy surfaces, I happen to slightly push the Zenbook away from me while doing so until I got a good grip. But the display is really sturdy and the hinges, they feel pretty confident. And there's one thing that I have to mention, and that is the interesting design choice for this grill/air outlet above the keyboard. According to ASUS, it's supposed to help with the cooling, while the real outlets are actually at the back below the display lid over here. But there is one problem that I have with this grill. Tiny pieces of dirt, skin or whatever might tend to get caught in there, and once that happened, it's gonna be a bit difficult to get them out again. But then again, as a wise man once said,
avoid eating and drinking directly over it.
Okay, so as the name suggests, it comes with a pretty glossy OLED display with great color accuracy, a resolution of 2880 by 1800 pixels and a maximum brightness of 400 nits, while it's also a 120 Hz display, meaning everything just feels a lot smoother compared to 60 Hz. And since this does have some gaming power, one could even make use of that for games that run with high FPS. In this case here, it's not a touchscreen, but those are available as well. Now, this would probably be an amazing laptop no matter which CPU was inside of this thing, but the Intel Lunar Lake Core Ultra 7 258V with its 8 cores and only 8 threads that ASUS used here does really help with the insane battery life it has, because these new chips, they just can be so insanely efficient. And I got up to 26.6 hours on idle with 20% display brightness with the 72 Wh battery using the Whisper mode. I also ran the Procyon Office Productivity Battery Benchmark, which kind of simulates a realistic balance of work and idle time at a brightness of 200 nits, which resulted in an insane 16 hours and 10 minutes, and even up to 13.8 hours when watching YouTube at 50% brightness. And those are even slightly better times than what we saw for the Vivobook S14 with the Ryzen AI 9 HX370, while that even had a slightly bigger 75 Wh battery. And since you could even game on this Ultrabook with the CPU limited to 15 or 20 Watt, you can actually get battery times of 2 to 4 hours for gaming depending on your settings. PS, within 30 minutes I was able to charge the battery from 0 to 42%. And that means if you're only using it for like 2 to 4 hours a day, it would probably last a whole week before it needs to be plugged in again. And I am kind of repeating myself, but ASUS really managed to nail the speakers for their thin and light laptops. The 4U speakers are quite decent despite this being an Ultrabook. It does have some bass and a clear sound, really sounds like a little Bluetooth box. Now for me personally, the installed chiclet keyboard with its white illumination is okay, though I would have preferred a larger key travel distance and a full-sized enter key, as I tend to miss that sometimes and hit the hash key instead. I've got nothing to criticize about the big centered touchpad with its additional gestures. The port selection is not great, to be honest. On the left side we get a HDMI 2.1 port and 2 USB-C Thunderbolt ports, while one of them is in use if you want to charge the laptop. and a 3.5mm audio jack. And on the right side, we're just getting one USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port. And that's it. So I guess you might want to think about a USB hub for this one. Speaking of the charger, it's actually on the screen right now. Can you see it? No? Here it is. I mean, what the? Come on. This 65-watt charger is tiny. I know that the Intel Lunar Lake chips don't have the best multi-core performance, and a lot of my viewers are also interested in gaming performance, where AMD still does have some advantages. And this is probably not the fastest ultrabook out there, but at least Intel finally managed to get the efficiency right. And the single-core performance is really good. Waking it up from sleep is insanely fast, it's just there within 1 second. And booting into Windows is quick as well, with only 15 seconds, including the Windows Hello login procedure via the webcam. I measured the fan noise and the long-term CPU package wattage in a Cinebench loop. It is getting loud on the full speed mode, but especially the normal mode and the quiet mode are super silent, while it is really efficient at these low TDPs. The PL2 TDP can go up to around 37 to 39 watts for a short time at the beginning, and depending on the power mode it drops more or less quickly. On idle and light tasks the fans turn off completely, by the way. And this is what the integrated camera looks like and what the integrated microphone sounds like. And this is what it sounds like when I'm typing on the keyboard while recording. Something like Premiere Pro video editing with 4K material is working flawlessly as well, thanks to the Lunar Lake chips. And here Intel is actually working closely together with Adobe to enhance the performance via AI for stuff like 4K video playback. And you can even do some basic Blender with it, since again, Intel is improving the performance here as well, with being significantly faster than, for example, AMD's Radeon 890M. Even though this is not this is not a laptop you're getting for the absolute maximum performance. You're getting this for the amazing portability and for the great design, the haptics, the display, and just its overall build quality. But that doesn't mean that we can't game on it. As mentioned before, I've tested 40 games on this Zenbook S14 OLED in an earlier video, so check that one out next if you're interested. But here are 4 selected games from that video up front. For Fortnite, I was using 1080p with medium settings and TSR on low. That resulted in playable 82 FPS on average and 50 FPS for the 1% lows. Not perfect, but you would always be able to instead lower the graphics or use the performance mode. I'd personally probably stick to these settings, as the game just looks so much better that way, and I'm not a pro anyways. So GTA 5 ran pretty well, at least in the tested single-player mode. At 1080p and high settings, with deactivated anti-aliasing, I saw 75 FPS on average and 1% lows of 51. Though, I have to admit I have absolutely no idea what was happening with the iGPU's boost clock here. At first it was all going fine, and then suddenly it dropped the boost clocks, and with it the FPS dropped as well, to around 75 to 80 FPS, and I double and triple checked that it happened every time. Hey Intel, you should look into that. Thanks. Hogwarts Legacy really is a thing of its own when it comes to performance. At 1080p with low settings and XeSS set to performance, I saw around 60 FPS on average, but due to a lot of transfer stuttering that is occurring in this game, the 1% lows have been pretty bad. But that is happening on so many weaker systems in this game. It usually gets better when you play a while or stay in one region for longer. In some scenes the FPS have been a lot higher as well, really depends. And I know with XeSS performance the game starts to get quite a bit blurry, but again, not on a 14-inch screen, not really though. Running an integrated benchmark is one thing, actually playing it is another. At 1080p and medium settings with XeSS unbalanced, Cyberpunk 2077 was playable with around 46 FPS on average and 1% lows of 26, but actually it seems as if the CPU is becoming the bottleneck here. A usage of 90% and more, and the GPU dropping to 80 to 90% at times. Nevertheless, I would consider it playable okay, and while it is a bit blurry due to XeSS unbalanced, the medium settings provide decent visuals at 1080p. Now, one of the biggest competitors to the ASUS Zenbook S14 OLED actually comes from within the same brand, the ASUS VivoBook S14 with the Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, which I've reviewed a few weeks ago. It is also about $200 to $300 cheaper, though it only has 24GB instead of 32GB of RAM in some configurations and only comes with a 60Hz 1200p display, which is perfectly fine for a 14-inch Ultrabook, to be honest. Moreover, it doesn't feature the new Ceraluminium surface, and the battery runtimes are a tiny bit shorter. However, the multi-core performance is more than twice as high due to the AMD CPU, and for gaming I currently would still prefer AMD due to better drivers and the AMD Fluid Motion frame support. But would I in general recommend the Zenbook S14? Yeah, absolutely. It isn't cheap for sure, but it is built really well, and this is one of these laptops, just like its VivoBook brother, that I would keep for myself to actually use it if I wouldn't have to send this review unit back, that is. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye and cheers.